everyone from Foothills, and anybody else who's jumped on today, welcome. I pray that you'd find peace in the presence of God as we meet together today. We've been looking at a series on living a simple life through the lens of the first commands of Jesus. And the first command of Jesus that we're looking at today through Matthew 7 is, first let God give you a pearl. So let's read those verses. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and then turn and tear you to pieces. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Which of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. So first let God give you a pearl. Obviously my words, not the specific words of Jesus, but I think it sums up the command. First, let God show us his generosity, show us his beauty, show us his powerful love. You know, these times bring out the best in us and the worst in us. It could go on for months, we don't know. These times drive us either to an unhelpful complexity that's demonstrated by worry, and worry is unhelpful because it sautés us in what we're concerned about, but doesn't lift us beyond it. It just leaves us there in the midst of it. So it either drives us to that sort of complex place, or it drives us to an empowering simplicity where we're lifted higher to a place of peace and hopeful vision. The unhelpful complexity is a result of the human way of things, and the powerful simplicity is a result of God's way of things. I can remember growing up in New Guinea, we used to play on the beach and on the reef, and one day I found an oyster shell, and it was a gnarly old oyster shell, but right in the middle of it there was a pearl trying to break out. It hadn't managed it yet, and you could just see the pearl formed inside, but it hadn't broken out. And the question for these times is, how will we find a pearl in the midst of our feelings of lack? I could sum up this passage, an amazing passage. I could sum it up this way. In times of lack, deal in pearls. Find pearls and give them away. Now, the human way is about taking things into our own hands. When we feel lack, we criticize. And we do that either because our resources are low and we're acting at our worst, or we're trying to address our lack by pulling others down. And Jesus would say, don't do that. Don't do that because it's hurtful. It's hurtful to people. He'd also say, don't do that because a critical spirit is a very complex, heavy thing. It strangles our soul. It's a dog-eat-dog type of way to do things. And Jesus saw it that way. He said, the measure you use will be measured to you. So as we criticize, we too will be criticized. There are no pearls in that way of things. There's no beauty. There's no empowering of our soul. We just engage around our lack. Now, there are other examples that we could use instead of criticism. Competing, for example, or lusting, or comparing with each other, or overworking. These sorts of things are all part of that human way. And Jesus would say, don't do it. Don't do it because it's defined by lack. We chew it and chew it and chew it, but we don't swallow. We don't get rid of it. We could criticise the PM, for example, or toilet paper hoarders. We reflect our fears in those criticisms, but there's no resolve. It's still there. We're still left in the same place in our lack. Nothing changes. There's no pearls to lift our soul. And if we keep engaging our minds and our hearts in that sort of way, eventually we'll come to a crippling complexity. So think about looking at a crouching tiger with fear and engaging our minds and hearts in that. Eventually that'll cripple us. Or think about treading water when the water's swirling around us and we just stay there and tread water. Eventually it will bring us to a place that cripples us. Now, I've tried to find an oyster lease in Penrith, but I can't. I suspect that the conditions aren't quite right in this part of the river. The depth of the water, the flow, the amount of pollution that's in the water. There are conditions to grow a pearl. And in the same way, to find a pearl, we need to venture into God's way. We need to move away from the human way of things and venture into God's way of things. And how we do that is found in the next verses. In verses 3 to 4, Jesus said, you're fixated on a little thing with someone else, a speck, but you're ignoring a big thing with yourself, the plank. And the plank was a big piece of wood. It was a major beam across a ceiling or a floor in a house. So there's some humour here because we've got this big plank in our eye, and the issue with it, as Jesus raises it in this passage, is that we can't see. We can't see in a way that allows us to help our brother with the speck. So Jesus in verse 5 says, first, deal with the plank in your own eye. In other words, recognize it and let me give you a pearl. Let God give you a pearl. Let Him forgive you. Let Him love you. Let Him show His generosity. Let Him pour out His love on you. And we could apply this to any need that we have, or any weakness, to our fear, or anything else that we identify. And He says, identify with your brokenness, and instead of that, instead of fear, exchange your fear for beauty. He's talking about then being able to see clearly. So once we've dealt with the plank, we've got that out of our eye, we can see clearly. We get spiritual sight. And there are a couple of things that are important here. The first is we see God. We see His love. We see His generosity, and we begin to live in plenty. He gives us a pearl. The other thing is, when we have a pearl, we have something to pay forward to our brother with the speck. So we're able then to show generosity to the brother with the speck in his eye. This way is defined by generosity. The human way is defined by lack. This way is defined by generosity. And if we deal in pearls, we will have generosity all around us, and we will live in a place where there isn't lack or the complexity of lack, but instead generosity. In verse 6, Jesus then says, don't throw your pearls to pigs. So obviously he understood that his followers would find pearls, would receive pearls, and that in a time of lack, they would come with their fears, with their weaknesses, and first let God give them pearls. And then once they have pearls, once they have Jesus, they've experienced His love, they have the truth of the gospel encouraging their soul, they would then pay those pearls forward. They would become, if you like, pearl dealers, giving away forgiveness, giving away radical love, giving away a testimony of God's presence and work with us, bringing hope to people, serving practically, providing practically. And so he would say, don't try and be relevant. Don't try and scale it down to give pigs what they want, like a corn husk. No, don't throw your pearls to pigs. But when you do give something, give a pearl. So I'd say to all of us at Foothills and anybody else listening, in this time of need, give a pearl. Go and get a pearl, go and receive a pearl first, and then give a pearl away. The measure we use is the measure that will be used to us. So if we give away pearls, we'll also be receiving pearls. And this is what verse 12 is about, and the golden rule. This is the context of the golden rule. If you like, it's describing a context in which people are receiving pearls and giving them away. Give to others what you would like them to give to you. If you like, it's an economy of pearl dealing. Or, if we talk about Jesus as the precious pearl, it's the economy of the precious pearl, his way of things. Then in verse 7, as if he's repeating it all again, Jesus says, or he could say, if you lack, ask God for what you need. Have a prayerful life and let God give you a pearl. It's a call to faith, to believe that if we pray in that way, that God will give us a pearl. And I suggest we pray not for more toilet paper, although that might be, a pressing need, but that we should go deeper to the issues of our soul, to our fears and our shame and our feelings of insignificance, and that we should, with faith, ask God to give us a pearl. And we have a choice, either to do that, to seek a pearl, or to embrace the human way of things and to operate on that human way of things and just to chew it and ruminate on it until the complexity gets to us and burdens us. And then Jesus says, God is a generous Father. If you ask for bread, He won't give you a stone. He gave His most precious pearl, Jesus, His Son. And if you're here today and you haven't received that pearl, I want to encourage you to pray a prayer. And the prayer might go something like this: God, here I am. I receive the precious pearl that you have given. I receive your generosity. I receive your love. And so if Jesus has given His precious pearl, even more now, if we seek Him for a pearl, will He give us what we need. He'll give us bread. He'll give us a pearl expressing His generosity and love.